For many years, Benny Andersson has been a legendary figure in music. He contributed songs to the globe that still make us sing and dance today as one of the creative forces behind ABBA. But life wasn't always simple beneath the glitz and #1 hits. Few people were aware of Benny's personal and family troubles following the painful split of ABBA. He chose to let the music do the talking and kept much of it to himself. However, Benny has now revealed the truth about her at the age of 78. Regarding his past and the current state of affairs with ABBA. Come along as we examine Benny's journey from the beginning in greater detail and discover what he has ultimately admitted. Early life and musical beginnings. On December 16, 1946, Benny Andersson was born in Stockholm's Vasisten neighborhood. His mother was Leila Andersson, and his father was Gasta Andersson, a civil engineer. Eva Lise, his younger sister, was born in 1948. He was born into a musical family. Ephraim, his grandpa, and his father were both accordion players. They got Benny his own accordion when he was 6 years old and exposed him to traditional music, Swedish folk music, and the Schlager style. He fell in love with music of all genres quite fast. Elvis Presley's Jailhouse Rock and Caterina Valenti's Dubas music were the first records he owned. Because it had a piano, he particularly enjoyed the song Treat Me Nice on the opposite side. He would be influenced by this fusion of musical genres for the rest of his life. Benny learned to play the piano on his own when he was 10 years old. Musicians such as Brian Jones served as his inspiration. He quit school at the age of 15 and began performing at youth clubs because he didn't enjoy being there. He met Christina Grunwald, his first girlfriend, during this period. Together, they had 2 children, Helene, born in 1965, and Peter, born in 1963. Benny and Christina were members of the Electricity Board folk music group, also known as Elberket Spelman Slag, at the beginning of 1964. Their electric instruments were the subject of a light-hearted joke in the name. Most of the songs they played were instrumentals, such as Baby Elephant Walk. Benny started penning his first songs, The Hepstars and Rising Fame, around this point. When Benny joined the pop group The Hepstars in October 1964, his career took a significant turn for the better. As the person behind the keyboard. The band's breakout hit, Cadillac, came just a few months later, in March 1965. In the 1960s, the Hepstars rose to prominence as one of the most well-known Swedish pop groups. In addition to playing the keyboard, Benny emerged as the group's primary composer and teenage idol. Initially, the band primarily performed covers of foreign hits, but Benny quickly started penning original songs for them. No Response, Sunny Girl, Wedding, Consolation, It's Nice to Be Back, and She Will Love You are just a few of the songs he gave the band. These tracks demonstrated Benny's ability to write catchy music and shaped their personality. In June 1966, Benny met Björn Ulvaeus, and the two soon started creating music together. Isn't It Easy to Say, their debut song, was later recorded by the Hepstars. Lasse Berghagen also collaborated with Benny. Together they collaborated to write a number of tunes. In the finals of the 1969 Melodifestivalen, Sweden's Eurovision Song Contest, one of their entries, Hedgeclown, placed second. Benny's life was altered in yet another way by that same incident. He soon became the partner of singer Annie Frid Lindstad. Björn met vocalist Agnetha Faltskog at about the same time. Naturally, the four of them worked closely together in the ensuing years as a result of these personal ties. In 1969, Benny and Björn wrote their first successful songs, Spelman for the Hepstars and Ljuba Sextettel for Britta Borg. As the two spouses started assisting one another during recording sessions, Benny and Björn were persuaded to model their group after popular mixed vocal acts of the era by the potent combination of Agnetha and Annie Frid's vocals. Through music, Benny and Annie Frid also became closer. Peter Pan, her 1969 song, was produced by him. And later, in 1971, her first album, Frida. As Agnetha starred in the 1972 Swedish adaptation of Jesus Christ Superstar, she occupied herself with revues and cabaret performances in Stockholm. All four were assisting one another's musical endeavors by the early 1970s, setting the groundwork for ABBA's formation. The four performed together for the first time when visiting Cyprus in April 1970. On the beach, they sang for fun, but it quickly evolved into an unplanned performance for the UN troops there. Agnetha and Annie Frid were contributing backup vocals to a number of the songs on Benny and Bjorn's debut collaborative album, Lycka, which they were recording at the time. Festfolket, which translates to party people but can also refer to engaged couples, was their stage name later that year. In Gothenburg, they made their debut on November 1, 1970. With the exception of their performance of Hej Gamla Man, Hello Old Man, which became their first success together, the show was largely criticized. The song, which is credited to Bjorn and Benny, peaked at number 5 on the sales charts and held the top spot on the Svensktoppen for 15 weeks. The four began touring and contributing vocals to each other's songs more frequently by 1971. Additional hits by Benny and Bjorn were Det kan ingen Dr. Jalpa, No Doctor Can Help With That, and Tanko M. Jordan Borung, Imagine If Earth Was Young, which featured more vocals by Agnetha and Annie Frid. The now married Agnetha and Bjorn started doing frequent shows with Benny in Swedish folk parks in the summer of 1971. Polar Music's leader, Stig Andersson, is adamant that Benny and Bjorn may become a global sensation. He urged them to continue writing. Following a few close calls, they participated in the 1972 Melody Festival and, with Sagdade Medensang, sang a song that won third place and became popular in Sweden. Then, in 1972, their song, She's My Kind of Girl, unexpectedly became a hit in Japan, reaching the top 10. When they released People Need Love in June 1972, with Annie Frid and Agnetha playing a larger role, that was the actual spark. Even though it only peaked at number 17 in Sweden, it was enough to demonstrate that Bjorn and Benny, Agnetha, and Anna Frid had something unique. The first tiny step towards ABBA's eventual global triumph was even taken when it charted in the US. The origin of the name ABBA and Ring Ring. The quartet returned to Melodifestivalen in 1973 with the song Ring Ring, still performing under the long moniker Bjorn and Benny, Agnetha, and Anna Frid. The track was given a unique wall of sound vibe by producer Michael B. Atreidau, which would later become ABBA's trademark. Neil Sedaka and Phil Cody also translated the song's lyrics into English. Although it only placed third in the competition, many people believed it would win. The song and album Ring Ring became hits in South Africa and other European nations, despite not making it to Eurovision. Agnetha gave birth to her daughter Linda in that same year, and Inger Brunden briefly took her position when she traveled to West Germany. At this point, Stig Andersson, the group's manager, determined the group needed a shorter name. In a light-hearted reference to a Swedish fish canning company of the same name, he started referring to them as ABBA. As long as the band didn't embarrass the brand, permission was given. Simply put, ABBA was the initials of each member's first name. Additionally, it was listed on studio records by the end of 1973. A few years later, Benny held his letter incorrectly during a picture shoot, which led to the creation of their iconic emblem with the backwards B. The mirrored B was a staple of ABBA's iconography by 1976. Waterloo during the years of breakthrough. ABBA received an invitation to participate in Melodifestivalen once more in 1974. They went with the lively Waterloo, which was inspired by the UK's glam rock movement. They were better prepared and had more experience this time. After winning the Swedish selection on February 9, 1974, they sang in English and won the Eurovision Song Contest on April 6. Throughout Europe, the victory opened doors. Waterloo entered the US top 10 at number 6 and peaked at number 1 in 9 other countries. Honey Honey, their subsequent single, was only moderately successful. However, their label decided to re-release Ring Ring in the UK. Some started to question whether they were a one-hit wonder. They went on tour in Europe in late 1974, but some of their gigs had to be cancelled since they didn't sell out. When they played before sold-out crowds during their tour of Scandinavia in early 1975, everything changed. They kept putting out singles, such as SOS and Mamma Mia, which were huge hits in Australia and Europe. TV's Countdown helped their songs top the charts in Australia. For 10 weeks, Mamma Mia maintained her top spot. ABBA was well known in many nations by the beginning of 1976, but it was still challenging to get into the US album market. The new song Fernando was featured on ABBA's first UK number 1 album, Greatest Hits, which was released in March 1976. It turned become one of their greatest hits to date. selling more than 10 million copies globally and reaching the top of the charts in at least 13 countries. Arrival, which they published later that year, significantly increased their level of success. Money, 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 Knowing Me, Knowing You, and their most well-known single, Dancing Queen, which peaked at the top of charts all over the world, including in the US, were all included on the album. They embarked on their first significant tour in January 1977, beginning in Norway and continuing through Europe before reaching Australia. Despite obstacles like intense weather and even a bomb threat in Perth, they performed for sizable audiences there. The movie ABBA subsequently captured the intensity of the Australian trip. Both the album and the film, ABBA, were released at the end of 1977. Then, in April 1979, ABBA released Voyage, which was partially recorded at the renowned Criteria Studios in Miami. Hits like Does Your Mother Know, I Have a Dream, and Chiquitita were among them. The singles were successful in Belgium and many other countries, but none of them peaked at number 1 in the UK. Gimme, 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 A Man After Midnight, another worldwide hit, was included in their best hits, Val Done 2, which was released later that year. They started the ABBA tour in North America in September 1979, performing to packed arenas. The tour proceeded around Europe, including 6 nights at the Wembley Arena in London. Their final significant tour took them to Japan in 1980, where they performed 11 sold-out shows. Although both Bjorn and Agnetha denied it was personal, their July release, The Winner Takes It All, was widely perceived as reflecting their divorce. With more than 1 million pre-orders, their November release of Super Trooper set a record for the UK. Their final UK number 1 was their title track. ABBA also recorded Gracias por la Música during this period, a Spanish-language CD that introduced the group to a new audience and became incredibly popular in Latin America. Even though their music was now heard all across the world, their story was far from over. The Visitors and the Start of the End in January 1981, Stig Andersson, the manager of ABBA, celebrated his 50th birthday, and Bjorn Ulvaeus married Lena Collarjo. The group recorded a unique song named Hovas Vittne as a tribute for his birthday. One of ABBA's rarest recordings, only 200 red vinyl copies were produced and distributed to guests. Anfrid Lyngstad and Benny Andersson announced their divorce a month later. Benny had already met Mona Norklet, whom he married in November of the same year, and it was disclosed that their marriage had been troubled for years. In early 1981, Andersson and Ulvaeus started writing songs despite personal difficulties, and by March, the trio was recording once more. They shot the TV show Dick Cavett Meets ABBA in April. Later in 1981, their new album, The Visitors, was released. It was a more mature record that addressed issues such as aging, loss of innocence, political oppression, and failed relationships. Even covert meetings against dictatorial regimes were alluded to in the title track. As the album's sole single, One of Us, ABBA achieved their final number 1 in Germany and their final top 3 hit in the UK. Although the album peaked at the top of various European charts, it fell short of previous economic successes in France, Australia, and Japan. Another song, When All Is Said and Done, became ABBA's last top 40 hit in the United States once it was released in North America. It mentioned separation as well, but in a more upbeat manner. Rumors of conflicts within the group, recording difficulties, and last singles increased after Benny and Frida's divorce became public. The group started holding new songwriting sessions in the spring of 1982. A new album and perhaps a brief tour were discussed. However, by May and June, the procedure was becoming challenging. They were barely able to have 3 songs recorded. I Am the City, Therefore You Owe Me One, and that's all. The recordings were put on hold, and the group took a summer vacation since Benny and Bjorn weren't satisfied with the outcome. Plans were altered in August. They chose to issue a compilation titled The Singles in lieu of a new album. The First 10 Years for Christmas, which would feature all of their successes from the past along with a few new ones. They released Under Attack with You Me One as the B-side and The Day Before You Came with Cassandra as the B-side in October and December. In a number of European nations, The Day Before You Came reached the top 5, although neither it nor Under Attack reached the top 20 in the UK. Nonetheless, the compilation CD did well in nations like Germany and the Netherlands and peaked at number 1 in the UK and Belgium. In the end, Under Attack was ABBA's last single before their breakup. Despite appeals from fans, Just Like That was never fully released, although I Am the City was eventually released in 1993. It was modified in parts for other endeavors, such as the musical Chess. Bjorn and Benny have persisted in their refusal to release the full ABBA version, despite the fact that it has been seen on bootlegs in the past. In order to promote the singles, ABBA visited London in November 1982 and made appearances on programs such as The Late Late Breakfast Show and Saturday Superstore. They traveled to West Germany the following week to appear on Show Express. They made their last TV appearance in Sweden on the program Nallas Maskinen on November 19, 1982. They then gave their final performance together on December 11, 1982. This was streamed live from a TV studio in Stockholm to the UK on The Late Late Breakfast Show with Noel Edmonds. It closed the chapter on one of the most popular pop groups the world has ever seen and signaling the end of an era. ABBA was defined by these two love stories. As you can see, ABBA was more than simply a band with eye-catching costumes and catchy tunes. Agnetha Fältskog, Björn Ulvaeus, and Benny Andersson and Annie Fried Lingstad were two real-life couples. In the early 1970s, ABBA's allure included their romantic tales. The notion that the same individuals who performed love songs on stage also went home together at night was adored by the audience. When Björn was a member of the Hootenanny Singers in 1968, Agnetha first met him. Benny performed on the organ during their July 1971 wedding. In 1973, they had a daughter named Linda, and in 1977, they welcomed a boy named Peter. But it wasn't always easy being famous. Their marriage was strained by touring and ongoing pressure. They broke up in 1979, when ABBA was at its most successful. Agnetha later stated that she required therapy because the split was unpleasant for her. Within a week, according to reports, Bjorn acquired a new girlfriend, Lena Kullerjo. Bjorn penned The Winner Takes It All around this time, and Agnetha sung it, including the lines, "Tell me, does she kiss like I used to kiss you?" "It was great to do that song because I could put in such feeling," she stated, acknowledging that it was emotional. Agnetha later stated, "Obviously we all know there are no such things as happy divorces, especially when there are children involved," in response to the media's claim that the divorce was amicable. The romance of Benny and Frida started in 1969, and by 1971, they were cohabitating. It wasn't until October 1978 that they were married, at the height of ABBA's popularity. However, they split up in 1980, just 2 years later. Although Benny assured reporters they remained friends, it soon became apparent why. In 1981, he married Mona Norklet, a TV producer he had met earlier. According to Frida, they made the decision to be totally open about their issues. "We just grew out of each other," she explained. Splitting up became essential. They attempted to stay in ABBA after their breakup, just like Agnetha and Bjorn, but the dynamic had shifted. The golden phase of ABBA, the life following the splits, ended in 1982 along with both marriages. Bjorn and Benny remained active and extremely successful after ABBA dissolved. They produced music for various artists, penned the popular musical Chess, and worked on the stage and movie adaptation of Mamma Mia. Each of them was worth hundreds of millions, and their wealth and celebrity continued to increase. The lives of Frida and Agnetha took a different turn, becoming more private and less public. During her travels, Agnetha struggled with stage fright, a dread of flying, and the anguish of being apart from her kids. She felt less confident in public since she was bashful and her English was not as good as the others. She had a number of relationships following her breakup with Bjorn, including one with a psychiatrist who had previously attempted to keep her marriage intact, and a detective who was defending her kids from threats of kidnapping. She secretly remarried surgeon Thomas Sonnenfeld in 1990, and the two parted ways 3 years later. Her father died a year later, and tragedy struck when her mother committed suicide. Agnetha grew more reclusive, shunning both music and public situations. She started dating Gert van der Graaf, a Dutch fan who had been pursuing her for years, in one of the most bizarre turns of her life. "I felt like I could no longer resist," she subsequently acknowledged. "I was curious about him." Gert stalked her once more after they broke up, which caused the relationship to end tragically and forced her to seek court protection. Like the Swedish legend Greta Garbo, Agnetha finally withdrew deep into the Swedish countryside and lived in solitude, even stating at one time that she wanted to be by herself. She didn't sing or even listen to music for years. Until releasing My Coloring Book, a new album, to the surprise of fans in 2004. She swiftly withdrew from the spotlight once more, though. Frida's experience of transformation and loss. There were dark sides to Frida's narrative. Her mother, Sine, was just 16 when she met Alfred, a married Wehrmacht sergeant, and she was the child of a wartime romance between her Norwegian mother and a German soldier during World War II. He brought her a sack of potatoes because food was in short supply. A present that resulted in a short-lived romance. Although Frida was born in 1945, her father had not yet met her since he had been transported back to Germany. Shinny escaped to Sweden with baby Frida and her mother Agni after being publicly humiliated in Norway. Sadly, at the age of 21, Shinny passed away from renal disease, leaving Frida to be raised by her grandmother. Before a reunion was planned in 1977 after his niece recognized her from an interview, she had grown up thinking her father had perished. The meeting didn't last long. According to Frida, finding a father at age 32 is challenging. Frida was already married and divorced, with 2 children from her previous marriage, when she first met Benny in 1969. She married Benny in 1978, but she was devastated to see him marry someone else so soon after their 1981 breakup. She went to London after ABBA split and then made Switzerland her home. She married into German monarchy in 1992, becoming Princess and Frida of Rus, Her Serene Highness. But she was followed by catastrophe. In 1998, her husband, Prince Heinrich, passed away from cancer the next year, and her 30-year-old daughter was killed in a vehicle accident in New York. Frida said her religion got her through the suffering and she left the public eye. She has recently found happiness once more in Zermatt, Switzerland, with the WH heir Viscount Hambledon. Smith Wealth, The Arduous Reunion Journey. The most often asked question in music following ABBA's breakup was whether they will reunite. They rejected numerous offers, including one for a concert series that was estimated to be worth $1 billion in the early 2000s. For many years, they were only spotted together at infrequent occasions, such as the premieres of musicals, films, and Mamma Mia! However, in 2018, a shift occurred. The 4 of them started discussing collaborating once more. They had only had 2 new songs planned, but this turned into an entire album. In 2021, ABBA Voyage was released. I looked around and I looked into Agneta's eyes and Frida's eyes, and there was the same kind of feeling, the warmth, the friendship, and the bonds, Bjorn recounted of his first day back in the studio. In order to provide fans a unique way to watch the ensemble, they also announced a high-tech concert experience including digital avatars performing in London. ABBA Voyage is a contemporary venue for classic music. In 2022, ABBA Voyage made its debut. And this concert isn't like others. Fans watch digital avatars of the 4 band members as they appeared at their prime in the 1970s instead of the band playing live. The holographic performance takes place in a specially constructed stadium in London's Queen Elizabeth Park in Stratford, which hosted the 2012 Olympics. Dancing Queen, Waterloo, and Mamma Mia are among the fan favorites on the set list, and the high-tech staging gives the impression that ABBA is physically present in the room. The initiative has been a huge financial and audience success. A recent estimate claims that ABBA Voyage has contributed £322 million to the British economy, with over 1 million tickets sold for as much as £181.50. It's not just the numbers, either. While providing a nostalgic rush to devoted fans, the event has preserved ABBA's music for future generations. In order to give returning guests a new cause to return, the production added a small item to the set list for the 3rd anniversary, which began on May 27. Benny and Frida's presence added an emotional touch to the anniversary celebration, even if Agnetha Fälskog and Bjorn Ulvaeus were unable to attend. It demonstrated that ABBA's story is continuously being written, not only through their music but also in instances like these where the past and present share a stage, despite decades, breakups, and life transitions. Speaking of which, ABBA's Voyage show in London on May 27, 2025, saw a unique event. Benny's sincere remarks regarding Frida. To commemorate the concert's 3rd anniversary, 78-year-old Benny Andersson and his 79-year-old bandmate and ex-wife, Frida Lyngstad, made an unexpected appearance. When the two were seen standing together on the balcony, which had not happened since their marriage ended more than 40 years earlier, the crowd went crazy. As the audience erupted in applause, Benny, wearing a patterned blazer, and Frida, wearing a stylish cream ensemble, stood side by side. "I love you very much," Frida said, grinning broadly as she took the microphone first. "I appreciate all of your help throughout the years. It's difficult to believe that was over 50 years ago." More applause followed as she laughed and remarked, "I'm turning 80 this year." Her acknowledgement of the lengthy journey from ABBA's beginnings to this point felt like a bridge spanning the years. Then Benny took over. And Frida started laughing when he made a light-hearted remark about two men entering a pub instead of making a serious one. It was more than a joke to the fans. It served as a reminder of their simple bond and shared past. They were married in 1978, during the height of ABBA's stardom, after having initially met in 1969 and moving in together shortly thereafter. But it was hard to stay united as one of the biggest bands in the world. Their marriage ended in 1980. And the next year the divorce was finalized. "I'm still friends with Frida," Benny acknowledged at the time. "For the sake of the music, we agreed to remain together. In all honesty," Frida explained, "we just grew apart. We made the decision to part ways after lengthy and difficult discussions. There were many conversations and many tears shed, but there was no turning back. Splitting up became essential." Their public appearance at Voyage in Benny's cozy, playful moment felt like a silent admission of how much love and respect they still have for one another. Benny Andersson and Bjorn Ulvaeus are making waves on Broadway, while ABBA Voyage is still selling out in London. Mamma Mia and Chess, two of their biggest stage hits, will perform simultaneously later in 2025. After its 1999 London premiere, Mamma Mia made its Broadway debut in 2001. It has subsequently been shown in 50 productions in 16 languages by more than 70 million people. After 14 years, 5,773 performances, and over $7 billion in revenue, it became the ninth longest-running Broadway production. From August 2, 2025, to February 1, 2026, it will make a brief return to the Winter Garden Theater. Chess will appear on Broadway alongside it, having been co-created in the 1980s. The fact that both performances are playing at the same time demonstrates the enduring power of Benny and Bjorn's collaboration, a creative alliance that has endured despite ABBA's dissolution and personal struggles while still bringing their music to generations of listeners around the globe. Do you believe that ABBA's breakup was primarily caused by their marriages and divorces, or do you think it would have happened anyhow? Leave a comment below with your opinions. Additionally, remember to hit like. Stay tuned for more amazing tales from the intriguing past of Hollywood by subscribing. I'll see you later.